All right, let's cut straight to it. In the crypto space, there's always a ton of noise, but the data, well, the data is where you find the clarity. Today, we're doing a deep dive into Binance's Bitcoin Proof of Reserves report from January 1st. With all the speculation flying around, we're going to push the headlines aside and just focus on one thing, the on-chain evidence. So let's get into the numbers. The market's been buzzing lately. Lots of talk about exchange stability, big withdrawals. It's really easy to get caught up in all that sentiment. But for us, as analysts, we have to step back and ask the real question. In a market just packed with noise, what does the verifiable on-chain data actually tell us? And that's exactly what we're here to figure out. Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, cutting through the noise. The goal here is pretty simple, really. We want to anchor our entire understanding in data that we can actually verify, not just what we're hearing on social media.
This slide really just lays out the whole challenge perfectly, doesn't it? Over on the left, you've got sentiment. It's powerful for sure, but it's fueled by speculation, rumors, and a whole lot of FUD. But on the right, you've got the data. Cold, hard facts. It's verifiable, it's on-chain, and it's tied to a very specific moment in time. As analysts, we have to make a conscious choice to live on the right side of this slide.
So, let's move on to the core of this whole thing and see what the numbers are really telling us. We're looking at data specifically anchored to Bitcoin block height 930340.
And here it is. The headline number, 100.06%. So what does that actually mean? Well, to put it simply, for every 1 Bitcoin a customer has on the platform, Binance has 1.0006 Bitcoin in its audited reserves. It means they're fully backed with just a tiny bit extra as a surplus.
Now this number here, 636,535 Bitcoin, that's the liability side of the equation. It's the grand total of all the Bitcoin that Binance owed to all of its customers at that exact moment the snapshot was taken. And here's the other side of it, the asset side. 636,914 Bitcoin sitting in their on-chain wallets. And as you can see, that number is just slightly higher than what they owe, which is exactly what you want to see. Okay, this table brings it all together nicely. You can see the difference between their on-chain balance and the customer balances gives us that surplus of 379 Bitcoin. And it's that little surplus that gets us to the 100.06% ratio. It's also really important to see that they're transparent about the fact that 18,218 of their Bitcoin are held in third-party custody. It's a key detail. But this Proof of Reserves report, it's not the whole story. Let's take a look at another really critical piece of their risk management strategy, the SAFU Fund. At the time of this report, the Secure Asset Fund for Users, or SAFU as we all know it, was holding right around 15,000 Bitcoin. So what exactly is this fund all about?
Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that this is a completely separate bucket of money. It is not part of that 100.06% reserve we just talked about. The best way to think about it is as an emergency insurance fund. It's there to protect users in some kind of extreme black swan event. And from a risk management standpoint, keeping these funds separate is absolutely key.
Okay, so we've got all the numbers, but what do they actually mean for investors? And maybe more importantly, what are the things we need to be careful about? Let's dig into the implications. So let's just address the elephant in the room head on. The biggest concern driving all this market FUD is whether or not these huge withdrawals we've heard about are actually putting the exchange's solvency at risk. This is the main question that the data really needs to answer. This slide is so powerful because it puts the red flags right next to the actual findings. You see, signs of trouble would be things like a reserve ratio dipping below 100%, or seeing that surplus margin shrink, or maybe they start delaying their reports. But what this report actually shows is the exact opposite, a ratio over 100% and timely, on-chain data. Based on this snapshot, the classic signs of solvency stress just aren't there.
So what are the positive signals we can take away from all this data? Well, first, it definitely gives us some confidence that spot Bitcoin balances appear to be fully covered. Second, the fact that the report is anchored to a specific block height makes it verifiable, which is great for transparency. And third, that separate SAFU Fund gives an extra buffer against any worst-case scenarios.
But look, this isn't a set it and forget it kind of thing. Smart analysis means you have to keep doing your homework. That means you should be monitoring these reserve ratios over time, tracking the on-chain flows and in and out of wallets, paying attention to those custody disclosures, and just generally keeping an eye on the exchange's overall liquidity. Real confidence is built on continuous verification, not just a single report. Okay, let's bring this all home and really focus on the final, and in my opinion, the most important metric of all, the data itself.
So let's just do a quick recap of the most critical numbers. As of that January 1st snapshot, the data shows a 100.06% reserve ratio. We've got over 636,000 Bitcoin in reserves backing up customer funds, plus a totally separate 15,000 Bitcoin in that SAFU insurance fund. At that specific moment, at that block height, the on-chain data confirms they were fully backed.
You know, in a market that's so driven by hype and speculation, it is so easy to get lost in all the noise. But a disciplined analyst always comes back to the metrics you can actually verify. FUD is always loud, but data is revealing. The core principle for any serious investor has to be this simple. Don't follow the noise, follow the numbers.
Because ultimately, for anyone trying to get a clear picture of what's really going on in this market, there can only be one foundational principle. In data, we trust.